as with some of my colleagues, I cannot, in my official capacity, advocate on behalf of the proposition, but I do want to share with you some of the consequences for the University of Arizona were it to fail, because those consequences would be nothing short of devastating. I will be brief because you saw some of the figures in the slides that, in the presentation just passed. But I do want to remind people, which I think is an important missed component in this, and Chuck talked about it a little bit. There really are two budgets that were passed by the legislature this year. There's one that is if Proposition 100 passes, this is what the budget will be. And there's a contingent budget for that goes into effect automatically if it fails. And if Proposition 100 fails in that contingent budget, the university system loses $107 million. The University of Arizona's cut, as you saw on this previous slide, would be $42 million. Now, you need to put that in a little bit of a context in that it comes on top of what has been already an enormous cut to the university. Over the last 2 years, the year we're in and the previous year, we've cut $100 million in permanent state funding. That $100 million permanent cut resulted in the elimination of over 600 positions at the university. We've consolidated a number of colleges together. We've eliminated academic departments. We feel like we have gone about as far as we can go and continue to offer the programs that we're offering. We've already knocked out a lot of the programs that we're doing. So what does another $42 million on top of that mean? You could just do a simple arithmetic on it and figure, well, let's say you had average jobs at $42,000. That's 1,000 jobs. Now, we don't have 1,000 jobs right now we could cut and still operate the university. But we're fairly limited in the sources of places we can go. Universities tend to be very heavy in people. People expect to have faculty in the classrooms and student services. So our two main sources of funding tend to be in personnel and they tend to be in financial aid. So if Proposition 100 were to fail, clearly we would have to reduce yet further the number of people at the university. And let's say you were talking maybe into the 500 range on that. We would have to make additional cuts into student financial aid. Now all of this ultimately, you see student leadership sitting back over here, all of this ultimately means fewer classes for students, reduced services for students. It lessens the quality of the experience and the value of the degree that we offer. I think an important and interesting point for people to keep in mind is that during the Great Depression, the darkest, bleakest, most terrible economic period in our nation's history, funding for public higher education in the United States actually went up. So we're looking at a period here in Arizona right now where we've taken a $100 million cut at the U of A. If Prop 100 fails, we're looking at an additional $42 million cut. And then next July, we face what everyone commonly refers to as the cliff, which is when the federal protections, the maintenance of effort protections, disappear. And there is an assumption that we're going to see even further cuts. What that all means is it is not unrealistic to expect that over about a 36-month period, we could be looking at a cut in state funding to the University of Arizona of as much as 50% of our original state funding. That is the steepest, fastest decline in state funding in the history of American higher education. So the consequences of that are enormous. And they are difficult to quantify at a certain level. We know it will mean fewer people. We know it will mean fewer classes. There's also a part of it that is really hard to get your hands around. And that is that we are in a very competitive marketplace for faculty. And as our situation becomes more and more tenuous, and our competitors around the country are not in this bad situation as we're in, we see the loss of faculty, we see the loss of staff, which is a real threat to us. And we've already begun to see the loss of important faculty members at the university. And how do you calculate out what that means in terms of the grants they then take with them, the loss of incoming students from out of state who suddenly see the institution diminished, the ripple effect of it for the economy here in southern Arizona is enormous. So again, I cannot come out and advocate for the proposition, but I can tell you that were it to fail, the impact on the University of Arizona would be enormous. Thank you.